Okay, again, I'm back. This is part two. I hope that I mean these parts can be watched individually, but um, I think it's good to watch part one first. It's got a lot of information there, and this one is just going to be a carry on. So I'm going to cover some effects and look at paths of rectangles or pen shapes. We're going to convert text to shape paths for animating, which is interesting. And lastly, I'll touch on the easy ease graphs and keyframes. There's several types of keyframes to use, and each of those do a particular job. Anyway, we'll first look at. So we got light sweep. Again, I always like to hit save before I move these in, just as a rule of thumb. Just Command S, just to make sure you saved your work. Sometimes when you drag these in, they cause some grief. I've had my system crash a couple of times for some reason. I think it's something to do with the bits per. Anyway, I got these light sweeps. You can adjust the width and intensity and edges, the angle, the center, all that, the color. I've done quite a few animations with this. I've got a couple of videos that are about 10 minutes long that have got an example of my After Effects comps with set to music, some trance music. So check those out if you like. But so we're going to pull up the color slider, and so as you see down here, the color changes as you slide it. So we got this this bright red. So at any point we can, like I said, we can animate. Hit the stopwatch at the beginning and make sure your playhead is set where you want it to start, and then you slide the playhead to the end where you want it to finish. So you put the playhead there, and then make your change. And as you make the change, it makes its own keyframe automatically for you. So you can drag the angle around, or you can use the little dial. So I'm going to type in a set number, 6 rotations, I think that is. So there you go. Very simple. And but then I duplicated. I copied and pasted a second one. Changed the color. Changed the rotation a little bit and all that. So everything's a little different. It's sitting on top of the red because I've copied it exactly. But as you see, I'm going to just change it a little bit. And if you noticed, the green was on top of the red, but it looked yellow because these colors, when they come in contact with each other, the colors mix. So it's another little interesting effect you can do. So watch what happens. That blue is overlaying the green. It's turned it into cyan. So as soon as I move it away, so every time these things overlap, the colors are going to mix, which is an added benefit to the light sweep. It's actually emulating how light actually operates. An added benefit for using light sweeps, same thing will happen if you use light rays, light bursts, that sort of thing. So yeah, just play around a little bit, get your centers right, and I think light sweeps are probably of my favorite because of the fact that the colors mix like that. If I move that right over, I think red, green, and blue would turn to white then. And then as they cross over, you're getting various mixtures of green and blue for cyan. So as you see here, we got white in the middle, and we've got cyan, a little touch of magenta. One thing I can encourage about any animator is to really know your way around how colors mix, and why when you do something like this, you cross the paths. Here you got yellow, green, and reds in there, some magentas and stuff too. So imagine what you can do with this. I've got red, green, and blue, and I've got cyan, magenta, and yellow, which are the secondary colors. When you mix yellow and red, it turns it to more orange. So I'm throwing a 6-1 on, which is magenta. So all of a sudden everything changes. And white being in the very center, white light, the whole idea of how light works is just amazing. And the fact we can see it, quite an amazing thing. So as you see, with a simple light sweep and changing the center, now what I'm doing is I'm hitting that little crosshairs, and I'm moving the centers a little bit. This is just the power of those making pre-comps and quartering them. So all of a sudden you can get some interesting stuff going on. So as you see here, each one of these is a layer, shape layer here. I've duplicated them, and I'm changing each one individually. As you can see, though, it's starting to make things very complex. The rotations seem to be the same, but the centers have changed. So you can imagine all the stuff you can do with just light sweeps alone. Next, I'm going to get into rectangle paths again. I covered this on the other video, but I just thought such an important aspect of how you navigate. So I got the shape layer, and I got a second shape there. One is a rectangle, and that you make from just using the rectangle tool, and the other is a shape, which you make from your pen tool. See how they each have their own transform and their own path and stroke and all that. So when I do the rectangle, I'm doing the whole layer, it expands everything together. If I try to moving these vector points, they don't work the same way as a pen shape does. So it's really important to, you're choosing your tool. All this really does is these can change scale, or they can change sort of the general shape. They actually could flip over as well, but with the pen shape you can actually move these and change the shape totally. So as you can see, you just need to know that each one of these has their own positions, anchor points. There's so much control involved in there. So anyway, I've got the whole layer rotating. You saw they were rotating together. But if I open it up and close that and open contents, and then open the rectangle and the shape, which is the funny shape thing, and then I can animate scale, and I'll do rotation on that too. So you got some interesting movements going on, and just be mindful that your values are always displayed in real time as you move. As you can see, what you can do with these sort of rotations make some interesting animations. And to be quite honest, I will be covering the graphs as well later on the keyframe. That's where you can get a little bit of bounce and a bit of squash and stretch going on. So if you're doing proper animations, I came across and learned a lot from a YouTube video called School of Motion, and they had some pretty good tutorials on how to squash and stretch these things. So as they're bouncing around on the screen, they're sort of reacting to the surfaces that they hit. So the 12 Basics of Animation is one of the ones I saw that was good. And so it's important to not just make things so rigid. If you want animation to look really good, you've got to give it some flow and some bounce and some squash, stretch, all that. So that's where it comes in handy to know these vector points as well. You can see though that how now I'm moving this around a little bit. I'm animating the path itself. I've highlighted the path of the shape, and so I can that shape can move, has more ability to change shape than the other one. The rectangle square has limited. So that's why I like using shapes, even though you have to get the shapes more accurate. You have to sometimes use guides to snap them to. but certainly working with shapes as opposed to rectangles is a lot more flexible. So, so I'll close that off. What do we got coming up? Be animated. To what you want to do. I'm actually redoing this to just type out Adobe. So I only have 5 letters to work with. So I'll do it again. I'll highlight it. I will transform. I'll center it. Try it again. Center in view. And you right click. I'm gonna scale it up first. So something I can work with. And then you right click there, hit create shapes from text, and you got a new layer with outlines on it. And in the contents, I'm going to reposition that first, I think. No, I don't have to. So going into contents, and you've got Adobe, 5 letters. Just bear in mind that letter shapes may have more than one path, and you got to be mindful of path 1, path 2, path 3 for a B. So there's only one path on E. There's 2 paths on an O, the inner and the outer. 2 paths on a D, 2 paths on an A. So each one of those paths can be animated. So I've hit the path stopwatch to start a keyframe, and now I've a position as well. So you set your first. What I tend to do is I want to finish up with this, so I will move the playhead down towards the end, and I will set all my keyframes as they are. That's my keyframe. So that's the normal. And then when I move the playhead back, I do all the crazy stuff to it, and then it all morphs back to what it's supposed to be. That's one way of doing it. So you can go the other way and start with that and explode it out into not everything, but this particular way, like I said, I like to keyframe the shape that I want first. So all these things have been keyframed. There they are there. So I've moved back here, and I've hit position and all that sort of thing. So, and I did the beginning as well. So I've got it. Here is the beginning. It looks like this. And here it looks like at the end the same. So I copied and pasted those, and now these are the keyframes I'm working on. So here, because the path has been selected, keyframed, I can start dragging the position. So I've moved the position there. You can see there are white vector points, so everything's moving. You can do several things as an operation. So there's that. And I'll just do that. And I'll just do that, and the E, go over there. So keyframe for final position before editing further. So now I've got this. It's floating in space. And it hits this point, and now it's coming back. So very simple. Because I made these into shapes, they can be treated like shapes. You can't do that to letters. The letters are not constructed the same way. So now I've highlighted all of these to make it happen quicker. So I'm going to Option and drag them, move the playhead. So that's a little bit quicker now. I'm going to touch on this graph now, because I got the keyframes. So you click a keyframe and then hit the graph, and then it will show you what it's doing. And in this case, it's doing its position first and coming back. So that's a simple position graph. So anything that has a keyframe on, you can bring up the graph to show what it's doing. This is down here was the speed graph. So you can bring up several. You can look at different aspects of the keyframe. You can click on these and toggle them into different keyframes as well. You can pull the little Bezier handles out to put a curve on them. See how now the graph is curved. All these things could be, I mean, once you start playing around with the speed and the different graphs, value graph and speed graph, and like I said, once you start getting used to moving these handles around, moving the keyframe in different position, this is where you can start getting some real random stuff going on. So do encourage you to play around with the speed graph as well. Don't let it frighten you too much. So, and if we want to go, we'll pick that keyframe there, go back to the graph, and we've got basically that's it there. It's you can see here it's selected in there, so that's what it's referring to, the 3 keyframes basically. So again, this is we want to look at this one, see how that highlighted there. So now we've got this, and then we can change that again. I'm doing this randomly, but you certainly can put some thought into how it's going to be. Over here are the different keyframes you want to look for. This linear, anyway, they're there. Hold keyframe there. So there's some hybrid ones and there's some main ones. So you got linear, Bezier, hold, and easy ease. Each one of these operates differently on the graph. So that's why it's important to know what keyframes you're using, or you can convert them afterwards, and what sort of graph that you can get out of using a type of keyframe. So anyway, we're back to our Adobe. So we're going to get into the shape of it now. Close that. Sometimes you got to go through and close off things that you're not using so that you can focus on what you're working on. So now you see here, O's got 2 paths, B has got 3 paths. So, and over here you see I can firstly have to work out which path is which is easy to do when you click on it. So right now you can see I've clicked on the top one. That's obviously the outer one. And the second and third one are either the center, the top, or the bottom hole. So I've clicked on the second one, and you can just make out the points. So the second one is the top hole, and the third one is the bottom hole. I've selected both of those points by shift clicking them both, and that gives you you can move them both together. So so as you see already, you can do some pretty amazing stuff with that. So we've done with the B. I think we'll look at the O now. So you got O, you have 2 paths. The top one is the here, the outer. You can at any point add, just like anything with the pen tool, you can add and click on it'll plus. You can add more vector points to these if you want to, which is handy sometimes when you want to do or these vectors can be slid along too, but sometimes you just add a few more vector points. And So we'll do the center now. That's the second. This is the second path. So we got your O. We've done some good stuff to the D, and I'm just gonna speed that along a little bit. So D, we're going to do something different to each path. A will do that. Okay, so and you can tweak this all day long if you want. So it's so that's it basically. Anyway, we're coming up to the end of it now. So this is the last of part 2 anyway. So yeah, just tweaking each of the points a little bit. So that was it. Part 3, we're going to look at time code. Yeah, we're going to look at some more effects: smear, polar coordinates, turbulence, sphere eyes. Oh, and part 3 is how I make circles roll using the circumference distance traveled formula, and making wheels and mesh spokes. A bit more on grids, guides, and title safe. I think I'll be touching on that a bit more. That's got a section on how gears work as well. And there's a formula for gear ratios and stuff, which, like I said, is not too complicated, but it's quite handy to know if you want to animate more realistic. And I want to touch on navigating the work areas a little bit more within the shapes. How the anchor points. We're going to move the layer bars, show how to move the layer bars a bit. And then finally, nulls, cameras, 3D layers, track mats. And then we'll finish off with rendering everything and exporting. So there's quite a bit on that third part too, which could be quite handy to know. So we'll leave it at that, and hopefully see you in part 3. So hope this was helpful for you. Take care.